Excited to introduce a personal hero of mine. Actually, before I was at Fullstack, I was in the Ruby on Rails community for almost a decade, from 2006. And Gregg Pollack was one of the superstars of that community. In fact, you were also in one of the first Ruby on Rails rap videos, if I remember correctly. So he was wearing a T-shirt with a big C on it, trying to rep for the controller in MVC. So, and Gregg is also the founder of one of the top consultancies for Ruby on Rails down in Orlando that spun out codeschool.com. So he's a founder and co-founder of CodeSchool that recently sold to Pluralsight. And he's been working on a lot of cool projects since then. And he's here to give a talk on how to become a better developer. And I'm really excited to hear what he has to say. All right. Thank you, Gregg.
Thanks. Okay. So I'm just going to be upfront and honest. I'm a little scared, but there's some things that I have written down that I want to read to get it right and to be as poetic as I possibly can. But so sometimes I'll be here, and then sometimes I'll come closer. You're so far away, so I'll be up here. And this is like 360. So like if I walk around, do they have to like scroll? Like, am I going to screw them up if they have to? I don't know. I don't know how that works. It's just staring at me. So this is actually me, 6 years old, playing Rogue across the 1200 baud modem on a VAX 11. Beat that! That's my hacker cred, for those in the room that know what those are. This talk started out originally as this idea of that code is not enough. In order to be successful, it's not just about being an amazing coder. There's a whole other set of skills you need to be good at. And there's a bunch of stuff that I learned. You know, I started out with the computer engineering degree and went back and forth between working for the man and failing at creating my own startups, and to arrive here. And I learned a bunch along the way. So Steve Jobs said, technology alone is not enough. And that's actually part of a bigger quote. He said, it is in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with the liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields the results that make our hearts sing. And you can best see Steve's understanding of this in the construction of the Pixar campus. In November 2000, Jobs purchased an abandoned Del Monte canning factory on 16 acres in Emeryville, California, just north of Oakland. Originally, it was supposed to be split into 3 different buildings, separate offices for the computer scientists, the animators, and the Pixar executives. But Jobs threw the idea out. He said that's a horrible idea. Instead, he made it all one space with an atrium in the center. He knew the most important function of a company was the interaction of its employees. And the more opportunities you have to give them that interaction, the better. It also wasn't good enough just to make a space. You had to make people go there. So all the common spaces, the mailboxes, the meeting rooms, snacks, coffee, drinks, whatever, cafeteria, they were all built in these shared spaces. And he insisted that the best creations occur when people from disparate fields are connected together to focus on a singular problem. And, you know, it works. And since 1995, when they released Toy Story, they released 12 films, probably 13 or 14 by now. Each of them averages over 500 million per film. So he knew that the best innovations didn't just come from technology. Technology alone isn't enough to create successful things. So over the next 30, 40 minutes, I'm going to be going over 12 different principles that I've learned, often the hard way, for being successful at building products, besides the code. The first is all about expectation. You know, a very important step in becoming a developer is getting better at setting things like estimates. Because incorrect expectations are also one of the big reasons why projects fail. It's why clients get really frustrated with you. It's why they leave. It's why customers get frustrated. It's why lots of things fail. So how do we solve that problem? Well, I've seen lots of different solutions to this. One is to get the client closer to the team. So inevitably, as you start developing, you know, you'll realize it doesn't work when expectations are set and the client goes away for 2 months. And they come back and here you have done. Because there's all these assumptions you end up making and having to make along the way. So some consultancies like HashRocket, Pivotal Labs, What they do is they even require the client to have somebody, to have a domain expert there on site. Because during the week when you're working on it, you're going to have questions. Did you want this button on the left side or the right side? What color should this be? And by moving the client closer to the team, you're more likely to communicate successfully. Yeah. Short feedback cycles. So I know as I built my consultancy, I realized like, oh, we need to be forcing ourselves, or at least put the process in place so that we're communicating on a weekly basis. So sure, we would do a big document up front that estimates all the different parts of our app. But then we would take the time on a weekly basis. Every Monday morning, we have our status call. Here's what we completed last week. Any feedback? And here's what we're thinking about working on this week. What do you think? Is there anything else we should be working on? OK, we'll get you back there with estimates. So we would be creating weekly estimates. And that maybe updating the original doc as we go, because things are going to change. Building a piece of software, as you might know, is not building architecture. It's going to morph. It's organic. So you need to have a system that allows you to be flexible so that you can be giving estimates often. And so we would on Monday send a status email to the clients. We would say, here's what we heard you say you wanted us to work on, and here's exactly how long things we think are going to take. And if we don't hear back from you, we'll assume it's good, and we'll move forward. Short feedback cycles. Also making sure that you use good project management tools and things are documented. I don't have one be-all, end-all tool for you to use because it really depends on the project. Sometimes, wait, so if I said the word like Kanban, would you know what that means? You guys are all learned about that. OK, that's great. Because that's really one of these really good systems of not only having a backlog and the things we're working on this week and the things that we've completed, but also there's ways to do estimation there based on complexity of problems. And getting good at that will help you become a better developer because you can set expectations and meet them more of the time. But estimation is really hard. It's kind of like riding a bike, right? It's going to feel really hard at first when you're just here. OK, here's this big nebulous problem. Let me know how long it's going to take you. And you're going to feel a little overwhelmed. I know I did in the beginning. But it starts out with small things. It's going to be hard at first, but if you can take small steps, if you can do estimates, even if those estimates are only for you, it gets you better at figuring out how long things are going to take. So it's just a matter of doing it. I like the idea of weekly. If you're coming to a company that's not doing weekly, maybe just take the initiative. You'll be a more valuable employee if you take the initiative to set those expectations. All right, so that's number one. Second is to be mindful of your inner problem solver. So I don't know about you, but as an engineer, somebody who enjoys solving complex problems, sometimes people come to me and they say, oh, Greg, I got this great idea. We're going to take, Facebook. We're going to bind it with meetup.com. We're going to do this. It's a complex thing. And my mind, because I like complex problems, immediately goes into problem-solving mode. And I get that kind of look on my face like, And then they stop, and maybe I'm like, yeah, so this is the you're going to run into this problem, and run into this problem, and you run into this problem. And all of a sudden, like, I've totally shot down this person's idea who came to me wanting to brainstorm because they were, they're just brainstorming. They had this great visualization. They wanted to do it. The problem with this sort of behavior and always being a problem solver is that it kills collaboration. Because often diagnosis sounds like criticism. Someone comes to me with an idea. If the first thing I do is tell them why it might be a horrible idea, it's going to kill collaboration, and it's going to sound like criticism. And that's not always what people want. There's this great quote by Charles Schwab. He says, in my wide association in life, meeting with many and great people in various parts of the world, I have yet to find the person, however great or exalted his station, who did not do better work and put forth greater effort under a spirit of approval than would ever do under a spirit of criticism. So beware of giving diagnosis. You know those people You have those friends that you come to, hey, I was thinking about doing it this way. And they just sort of, oh, well, they immediately go into diagnosis mode and want to tell you how to do it better. Yeah, it doesn't feel good. One way to sort of get around this that I know what I try to do, when somebody comes to me with an idea, if we're in idea mode, and they're not saying, hey, Greg, why do you think this might be a bad idea? I like to do yes and. So someone says, hey, we could do that. I'm thinking about this. I'm not sure if we could do it like that. Rather than immediately going to diagnosis mode, I try to think, okay, how can I be complementary? Are we just brainstorming? Yes, that's great. And if we make sure that we do it this way, we won't have to worry about this. And if we do it for just a week, we can really look at the data that came from that and use it to make even better decisions. Right? So yes and is a good habit to get into. Also, being a good listener is really important. We all have people in our lives. If you can think of somebody who, when you go to them, it could be a parent, it could be a grandparent, it could be a mentor, that when you go and you talk to them, you feel like you are at the center of their universe because they genuinely care and they're listening. And you blink and 30 minutes has gone by because you've just felt engaged. This is Derek Sivers. Can you tell he's a great listener? So Derek is this guy I met early on. He created cdbaby.com. He wrote these articles that were like kind of dissing Rails in the early days, but then he learned it and he loved it. And when you're in his presence, he is just engaged and just listening and just present. And there's not too many office environments where you get that all of the time, especially when you're problem-solving mode. I know so many companies where they feel like they have to compete to get a word in, and that's the worst. That is not collaborative. So beware of your bad habits. Try to be a good listener. Try to give people your undivided attention. And be mindful of your inner problem solver. I know one thing that I do, one of my quirks, is I have this problem of interrupting people with my face. So luckily, I'm good enough not to just interrupt, but they'll be talking and I'll get an idea. Right? So then I'm like, fuck, I just totally derailed it. And now they're like, great. Greg's not really listening because he's obviously waiting for his turn to talk. So be mindful of your inner problem solver, of being giving too much diagnosis when it's not asked for, and being a good listener. Also, some people say this, software development is an art form. I think it's a pile of crap. I think software development is a craft. So what is the difference? A craft means making useful objects with perhaps decorative touches. Fine art means making things purely for their beauty. Yet, it's our jobs as developers to take whatever canvas we're given, whatever topic we're given, even if it's the most ugly, uninteresting concept, and figure out some way to take that canvas, combine that with beautiful design and beautiful development and architecture to create something we might call beautiful. It's hard. Here comes the rant. There has to be at least one rant in every talk that I give. So here it comes. And it has to do with the glorification of creating your own products and your own startups. Because I don't know about you, some, like in the Ruby and Rails community at least, being in there was just so much glorification. Like, yeah, we'll do consulting, but really what's awesome is we can build our own products and blah, and that's the golden chalice that we're aiming for. Which I really hate that sentiment. Because the bottom line is, consulting is an art form, is a craft, and it's usually more challenging than creating products for yourself. It takes a whole nother set of skills that you need, like product design and customer development. And it shouldn't be seen as any less glamorous, because the bottom line is scratching your own itch is easy. This is why you see so many developers creating project management tools and testing tools and all this stuff. So scratching your own itch is easy because you're the client. You want a bigger challenge? Scratch somebody else's itch and figure out their domain. I live in Orlando, Florida, where I'm a big fan of the mouse. And I love taking my kids here. They're 9 and 10. Although right now we're doing Universal more than Disney. But when a ride is under construction, sometimes they put up kind of nice quotes on the walls. And there's one that I took a picture of that really touched me. Is you don't build it for yourself. You know what the people want, and you build it for them. There's a whole set of skills that you should develop, that you need to develop around craftsmanship, so that you can take any canvas or any design or any product that even you're not passionate about. I mean, there was a job that I had once that was, what was it? It was basically like reviews on jets for rich people. And it was just like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to get passionate about this. But yet, I can get passionate about the tools and the craft so that we can build something that is architecturally beautiful. And that's part of being a craftsman. So number 4 is learn how to delegate and improve the system. When I first started getting into business and building my own startup and failing at it, there was this book called The E-Myth. Anybody here read The E-Myth? All right. So this is like the first business book. It's a great first business book. And sort of the gist of it is that it breaks it down and talks about how every business is really just made up of a series of systems. And if you can document those systems well and get good at those systems, the business becomes more successful. And I know as I started building my own consultancy, I learned there's these people called project managers that not only are better at organizing than I am, but they actually enjoy it. It's crazy. I will never, ever again live without them, because I realized that's part of the system. And I remember the first time I brought one of them on, and that was like that first week. I was like, okay, can I give you this? Okay, can you do this for me? And I remember going home that night just feeling like guilty, like, oh, I shouldn't have given her that task. I mean, I could have done it myself. I came in the next day, and I was like, was that okay that I had you do that? Greg, I enjoy doing this kind of work. You do? Wow. My mind was blown. I mean, the time after that my mind was blown in the same sort of way was like the first time I met an attorney, that it was like, Greg, man, there's nothing better than sitting down with a cup of coffee and like a 100-page legal document and just get with a highlighter and a marker and just getting in the zone. I was like, holy shit, you exist? I didn't think anybody would enjoy that, but he was totally serious. Right, so stuff like this, all this stuff. So what does this have to do with you? So what I'm trying to get at is I find that often developers, as problem solvers, we can easily get caught in this mentality of, just because I can do something, then I should. Just because I'm capable, then I should. But that actually doesn't do the business any favors. Because in a business, you want the people who are good at that task and actually enjoy it to be the ones that are doing each individual task. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Is there somebody who is more experienced? Is there somebody who enjoys it more? Is your time better spent doing something else? So keeping that in mind, you can actually help the businesses you're a part of. I often encourage people to do the math. What do I mean by that? So there was this company that Envy Labs early on, the consultancy, was renting space from. And I thought it was so lavish. They said, hey, Greg, we've got a full-time barista, and you're welcome to take advantage of that. Full-time barista? Like, wow, like Silicon Valley, full-time barista. And I thought it was a little over the top until I did the math. So let's say like they had a bunch of people. So let's say 80 people there, like on average. Some of them drink coffee, some of them don't. So let's say average 1 cup a day. The time it takes for them to get out off their desk, go to the elevator, go down to Starbucks, walk across the street, get back, go up, then sit down at their desk, get back in the zone. Like, that's a lot of time wasted, even if it's just going to the coffee machine. Like, there's a lot of time wasted. What does that calculate out to? Daily, it's about 20 hours wasted. Wait a second here. Like, they're actually making money by having a full-time barista, because people would just like go on Skype and they would say like, hey, could I get a soy cappuccino I'm over here, could you? And the barista would make it, bring it over to their desk, set it down. It's like, oh wow, I thought it was lavish, but they're actually making money. So I say, do the math. And I know you're thinking like, I'm not going to run my own business, I'm going to work for somebody else, but that doesn't matter. Even if you're a small cog in a big machine, there's still ways to improve the system. You know, it could be if someone does a task better than you. Could be that, you know, Jim loves writing tests, or Tim or Jan loves doing e-commerce. They're really good at e-commerce. So if I have tasks on my plate, I might say, oh, hey, you know, I could do this, but also, I know, Jan, you really like doing these sort of stuff. You know, would you like to do this? Or it could be like, hey, you know, I'm doing this HTML stuff, but what I really feel like I'm good at is the back-end stuff. And we got front-end developers. Should we be finding someone to do this to be a little more efficient, because I know they're experts at this and I'm just a novice? So things like that. Oh yeah, I talk about this. You know, as a human, first you're independent and then you're interdependent. So you want to be able to rely on people and not always take it on if it lands on your plate. So that's delegation. Number 5 probably is obvious to you guys, but continue to learn inside and outside your company. So what can you do here? Inside, I'm always a big fan of internal presentations. So I know at Code School we would have like every other week we would have people do like a lunch and learn. If it was just, it could be as simple as, you know, code coverage. It could be, you know, project management. It could be anything, any of these little tasks we would have people teach each other. A big fan of book club. That is probably the easiest way you can make everybody around you better, is by, you know, there's a book, there's a technique you want to learn. You simply say, hey, is anybody else interested in going through this book? We'll do like 1 chapter a week. We'll meet for lunch on Wednesdays and sort of talk through it. It's a great way to learn and help everybody around you get better. I'm a big fan of also pair programming. I know we didn't, do you guys do pairing here? Yeah. That's great. I'm a fan of pairing, but not necessarily all of the time. So what we would do is identify, like on Monday morning, I would encourage people to go, okay, look at everything on your plate. What are your most difficult tasks, or the tasks that are really important to get right? Who here do you want to learn from? Okay, maybe go and reserve some time with them at the beginning of your task so that you can make sure you're executing properly and you can learn from them. So taking the time to ask for that too. Don't assume that just because your employer doesn't do pair programming that you're not allowed to do it. Find the time. It's so important that you learn from your peers. I'm also a big fan of eating together. I never eat alone. At home, what I do is, in Orlando, I schedule out lunches. So if I have a lunch, if I'm back in Orlando, I have someone I'm having lunch with every single day. It's always on my schedule, and I think it's a great way to bond with people. It's a great way to learn from them. So that goes with, you know, I wish, man, early in my career, I wish I would have taken the initiative to invite all of the different people around me to like one-on-one lunches. That would have been, I probably would have learned from them. Probably would have created a deeper bond with them. Screencasts, you guys do screencasts. We talked about this earlier. I'm a huge fan of screencasting in learning. What we would do at Code School, probably, well, at NB Labs first, the consultancy, I think the biggest reason we were never sued is that on every Friday religiously, we would not only send our clients, here's what we completed, and it's up on the staging server, go test it out, but we would also create a 3 to 5 minute screencast saying, here's the work, here's it working, you click here and you do this, and you click there and then you do that, and here you go. And they would love it. It was like feeding them crack. They got addicted to these screencasts. And because, is your client going to have time to click 3 levels down on that one scenario to test that feature you created? They're not going to have the time. Are they going to have time to watch a 3 to 5 minute video? Yeah. What's great about that, they can send it to their other stakeholders and say, hey, look what we did. What's even better about that is that you can create a library of videos that show how to use the product as you go. And what we would do here is we create these screencasts, and then every Friday we would sit down and we would, or even the following week on that Tuesday, we would have a team lunch and we'd watch each other's screencasts. It was so much fun, especially when people would screw up and everybody would, because everybody did that. But what would happen is we started learning from each other. Oh, look at what Tim created with that e-commerce stuff. I'm going to have to work on that. Something like that coming up in my project. I'll go and talk to him about that and how he implemented that. You get to see what everybody's working on and then know who to talk to about how they did it and how they implemented it. It's a great way to learn. And that continued into Code School. What we do at Code School every other week, someone from each department, because we got up to a 50-person company at one point, someone from each department, whether it was design, front end, course creation, content, marketing, operations. Someone from each department would have to create, we would rotate, would have to create a 2-minute screencast showing what they worked on. Oh, and that was so cool in so many ways. Because on Friday we'd watch them all. And so you got to see what everybody else was focusing on the company. And not only was that great from learning from each other and how we were doing it, but it also showed people what everybody does, which is also really important. As I know as an entrepreneur, my worst fear is that someone comes in from, for the day and they walk past somebody's desk and they look up and they're like, what the fuck does that guy even do here? I see him playing ping pong and he gets coffee and what does that, what, do they even work? And it's demoralizing. So it's kind of important to kind of know what everybody does in the company, and so that they all have a feeling of oh, that's the value they bring. That's the value this person brings, so that you have that feeling of a connection and you know who to talk to. Oh, I'm working on a piece of software that's going to affect that person over there, and I'll go and I see now how that's going to work. Anyways. Okay, it's a bit of a tangent. Let me continue. Retrospectives. Do you guys do retrospectives here? Oh, that's rad. So many companies don't do retrospectives. It's just as simple as we finish the project. Let's take 15 minutes. What went well? What didn't go well? What can we do better next time? If you join a company and they don't do that, take the initiative. Be the one that says, hey, could we just, before we move on, can we talk about how that project went? Outside the company, there's obviously stuff like Code School, but everybody learns differently. So I encourage you to figure out how you best learn, whether it's books, subscriptions, conferences. Figure out what works for you and build that into your yearly development cycle. There's stuff like podcasts. In case you're wondering what I've been up to, I've got a bunch of podcasts up on codepop.com. I'm interviewing people in the open source world. Also, learning outside your company, things like contributing to open source are really good. I'm a big fan. I love going to conferences, making sure I get out there. That's the thing when you interview, which I think some of you are about to ask, how does your company build craftsmen? I want to move from junior to senior developer. What is my path and how do I learn every year? Do you guys let us pay for subscriptions, books? If I Can I go to conferences? Are you going to pay for me to go to any conferences so I can learn? Maybe if I want to talk at conferences, are you going to help pay my way? Do you see value in that? That's so cool when you find those companies. It's so great when you find those companies that see value in becoming a speaker and building your personal brand, which is also really important. Also, getting involved in the community. You know, I'm curious. How many of you live in New York? Is it like everybody? Most people? Some of you? Okay. Oh, I should ask. How many people live outside of New York? Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, you've got a great community, and there's all sorts of stuff. Like I started the Ruby users group back in the day, but I'm a big fan of being deeply connected to your community. All the best jobs will never be advertised. They all come from meeting people in the local community groups. Being a part of that community, speaking in that community, networking in that community, and asking around. I know when I was building NV Labs and then Code School, all the most talented people came out of here. I never posted a job, right? I just got to that point where I was like, hey, I have enough work. Who do I know? Oh, yeah, well, you know, Jacob did that presentation. He obviously knows what he's doing here, and I know he's working on a technology he's not really happy about. Let me give him a call. Hey, Jacob, you want to jump over here? That's what happened over and over and over again. So I ended up working with some really talented people. Yeah, lots of different events. All right, let's move on. Don't worry, we'll move and we'll get faster. It's faster. Even though I'm 6, it'll accelerate. I promise you. I should be done by 3. Yeah. Is that good? All right. I'll make sure that happens. Also, staying out of your comfort zone. That's number 6. So, right. So after this, you're going to go back to working on whatever you're working on. You're going to have a to-do list in front of you. And some tasks are going to be difficult. They're going to be difficult because they're scary, maybe even risky. But at the end of the day, or even at the end of the week, which tasks, the easy ones versus the hard ones, are you going to learn the most from? It's going to be the scary ones, right? It's going to be the difficult ones. But naturally, as humans, we tend towards our comfort zone. We tend to want easy tasks that we can complete and feel good, right? So the difficult tasks equal more learning. We naturally gravitate towards the easy, and sort of the easiest example of this is that email trap. I could get back to that hard task, but let me first go into my email because, you know, I can get back to inbox 0 and then I'll feel accomplished. Sweet. Oh, it's so easy to fall into that trap. But you want to learn the most while you work. You want to feel like you're giving your all and you've accomplished the most. You've got to stay out of your comfort zone. You have to build your day so that you're attacking the most difficult, scary tasks first, head on, maybe even asking someone to pair with you if you're really concerned about getting it right. All right, number 7, make friends and build relationships. So in the Agile Manifesto, they say individual interactions over processes and tools. It's kind of intuitive, non-intuitive. We don't spend enough time thinking about this, I think, as either employers or about people. Like, the more friends, the more support you have, the happier you're going to be. We are tribal people here. We enjoy having groups and having support. The more friendships you have at work, the happier you're going to be. The happier you are, the better work you're going to do. So it's kind of interesting to think about this because I know I fall into this trap too of undervaluing this. How much time do you spend at work, I ask people, nurturing friendships? It's so easy to think, well, really I'm here at work to just get work done and bottom line, and spending 10, 15 minutes, you know, talking about our weekends. Is that worthless time? It's really not. Because if you can strengthen friendships, you end up communicating more effectively, you end up enjoying what you do, you end up happier, and that ends up you end up doing better work. So one way you can make everybody around you better, become a better friend. And it's often neglected in this community. Oh, I forgot to replace this. I did this last time I gave this talk. I was in Chicago. So ignore it. Pretend that says New York. So one way you can make the community better is by making more friends. So I know at times, and I still suffer. You wouldn't know it, I'm sure, by me giving this talk, but I definitely can be shy when it comes to talking to people, breaking the ice with people. I'm afraid of rejection. And so people, I don't know how I should start to break the ice. I don't know how to get started. Well, the trick is people love talking about themselves. So that's all you have to do if you want to start that conversation, is just ask them about themselves. Ask them about, what they love, what their passion is. These days, I stopped asking people what they do. I feel like it's kind of mechanical. What I like to ask people is, what are you passionate about? What drives you? What are you passionate about? That's what I like to talk to people about. And that kind of opens them up a little bit. Or even simpler, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? That's the easiest thing to go to. So make friends and build relationships. Number 8 is do not be afraid to ask for help, and beware of Soviet unicorns. I don't know what that's. I've never understood this, but we've all been there. You have that 2-hour estimate, and you get into it, and the 2 hours is almost up, and it gets up, but it's just this one small bug, and then you're going to be done. So you go down the rabbit hole, and then it's 4 hours later, and it goes by. I feel like you know what I'm talking about. You've been there, all right. Then this happens, and right. So yeah, it's better to fail after 2 than 8. The thing is. And the thing is that you have to understand is that it's totally human nature that once you've committed yourself to something and you've said to somebody, I'm going to do this, you're much less likely to actually ask for help. It's totally natural. Let me give you an example. Let's say there's this country. We'll call it Kerplakistan. And it has an evil dictator that happens to look a lot like David Hasselhoff. And, you figure, we have to help out. It's our obligation because, we're into it. And we commit to fixing things. So we get engaged, but things don't look well. But are we going to give up? No, we'll double down because we're engaged and we made a commitment. Do we back out? Do we ask for help? No, because we engaged it, and so on and so forth. And if you appreciate the political reference there, I totally meant to do it. Otherwise, it was completely accidental. But it's human nature, once you've committed to something, to really be very reluctant to ask for help or, God forbid, admit that you fucked up. So the rule of thumb that I tell people in my companies is give yourself 30 minutes. If you get stuck, from the moment you get stuck, you have no more than 30 minutes to try to figure it out on your own. Stack Overflow, Google it, all that sort of stuff. If after 30 minutes you're still stuck on that same problem, it's time to ask for help. Because if something is taking too much time, you're probably doing it wrong. The answer is probably staring you at the face. You know how that happens 99% of the time. You're missing a fucking semicolon. So who do you ask, right? Well, yeah, you know this. It's the person next to you. It's Stack Overflow. It's Googling it. You can also preempt the problem, like I mentioned. If you know that something's difficult, it's getting that time with that person perhaps more senior than you. Hey, I have to do this task. I think it's going to be a little complex. I want to walk through with it with somebody who's a little more experienced so I make sure I get it right. Do you have 15 minutes to talk through this? Or 30 minutes to pair with me? So don't be afraid to ask for help. Learn to eliminate distractions and get in the zone. Do you guys talk about flow here at all? I'm curious. No. So, well, who here knows about that kind of principle of flow? Right. So this is that moment where you have that problem in front of you, and you, like if you're that attorney, you have that 100-page document, or if you're that developer, you have that problem in front of you, and you just dive into it, and you look up, it's 4 hours later, and it feels like it went by like this, because you were just in it. And it's that, you get that, and then like, at the end of the day, you put your head down on the pillow feeling like you just gave your all, and there's nothing better than that, than just to know you got it there, and you were in flow, no distractions. And in order to do that, you have to eliminate distractions. It takes time to get there, and you can get kicked out of that flow so easily. It could be an email, it could be Slack. Slack is pretty bad at that, where you get distracted. It's scientifically proven that if you get kicked out, it takes you a good 20 minutes to get back into that concentrative state where you're productive. The other thing that I'm trying to learn is that it's not natural to be productive 100% of the time. So often I would tell people in my companies, like, I want you to have 20% of your time having fun here and 80% of your time being productive. And I need to get better at this. You do things like, you guys talk about Pomodoro? No? So Pomodoro is a technique where it's basically like, you can do like 30 minutes on, 10 minutes off. It's about taking breaks, staggered breaks, like times of focus, staggered breaks. And when you're in that focus, you're true to that focus. There's no email, there's just focus. But it's also important to give yourself a break. And I know with me, it's about not feeling also guilty about taking those breaks and understanding that if I can go and, these days when I'm working at home, I like playing the piano. I go and step away and I play the piano for a little bit and then I come back. And I feel refreshed and I'm actually able to be more productive because I took those breaks. It's also important to turn off communication. Notifications are your enemy. Anything that pops up on your screen, you got unless it's like, directed towards you, like it's got to turn off. Like, I encourage everybody to use the turn off notification settings on like Slack, on email, anything that's buzzing you on your phone. It will keep you from being productive. It'll keep you from doing your best work. Asynchronous communication is also really important. So I talk to people like when you say you're working on that problem for 30 minutes, right, and you get stuck, and it's like, okay, who should I talk to? Okay, well, I think, Jan's going to be the right person to talk to here. Okay, looks like she's in the zone right now. How important is it that I talk to her right now? Okay, well, if the server's on fire, it's probably immediate. Maybe I will go tap her on the shoulder. If it's something that can wait, an hour or two, maybe I'll just send her an email. That way I know when she's available, she can get back to me. So it's important as a worker to just think about how much I want to interrupt somebody. And if it's not immediate, maybe an email will be fine. They'll get to it when they get to it. I'm a big fan of alternative workspaces. That helps me be more productive. When I'm just not at my desk all the time, I like using different spaces. I feel like that's good. At Code School and NV Labs, we let people work from home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I feel like having that flexibility is just a breath of fresh air. And I don't feel like anybody wants to come into an office 5 days a week. That's just me. I'm a big fan of sticky notes. Not this much of a fan, but I'm a big fan of sticky notes. If I take the time at the beginning of a day to go through, what are all the things I want to accomplish? Write them down on a sticky note. And then the second step is simply rank them on importance of how I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put the priority. Take that, put that on my laptop, Done. I don't have to think about priorities or what to do for the rest of the day. It really helps. Because it takes a lot of brain power to prioritize. It takes a lot of brain power to hold all those tasks in your head. And if you can get them out at the beginning of the day, oh, it makes it so much simpler when you do get interrupted. That phone call comes, or even you go get coffee and you come back and you sit down, you look, number 2, that's where I am, go. You save a lot of time, a lot of brain power. I mentioned Pomodoro already, so that's number 9. Number 10 is the most complex solution is rarely the best solution. As much as it hurts me to say it, sometimes the solution is WordPress. It really just is. And as developers, you'll find this, that you will make decisions and you will over-engineer things, and you will be on teams that over-engineer things. At Code School, when we first built it, we wanted to do a subscription service. And we were like, hey, we'll probably build other products, right? So let's build a multi-tenant billing system. Do you know how many tenants our multi-tenant billing system ever had? 1? Yeah. Yeah. We should have just kept it simple. So that's 10. Number 11 is communicate better than everybody else. That's how you can kind of win. This great quote, creating quality software is X% code and Y% communication, where Y is greater than X. It just always is. There's this great book called Rework. Anybody here read Rework? No? Okay. Well, I think you guys will dig it. There's one place in that book that says, okay, so you have, let's say you've got 2 different candidates, candidate A, candidate B, and they both about the same skill set. Who should you hire? They say hire great writers. Who's a better writer? Great writers know how to communicate. They know how to make things easy to understand. They can put themselves into somebody else's shoes, and they know not just what to say and explain, but they know what to omit. And sort of clear writing is a sign of clear thinking. It makes sense. So if you can communicate well, you're going to do really well. So how do you communicate more effectively? Well, you do stuff like leverage the right project management tool and use it effectively and document. And the other thing is you can put systems in place to force yourself to communicate. You can over-communicate. Like I mentioned, 2 things we did with the consultancy, put systems in place so that at the beginning of the week we're talking with clients, we're putting the tasks in front of us, we're estimating. Every Friday we were religious about here's where we spent our time, here's where it went, here's where we're going, here's the screencast for the week. Figuring out those systems. For you, it might just be a daily estimate. It might be sitting down at the beginning of the day and figuring out what am I working on, what are my estimates, what are my priorities. And communicating that. And not just through text, but through images and video, not words. I already talked to you about how effective screencasting can be. You want to communicate better than everybody else? Learn how to create these short videos. You use something like, I recommend Screencast-O-Matic. They're really simple, So the next time you have that bug, you could try to describe it in words, or you could just hit record, say, hey, this is Greg, and when you found this bug where you click here, and you see the screen flickering, and you see that button that's on the wrong side, that's what I need to help fixing. You hit stop, you hit publish, and it gives you a URL. And you paste that URL into your ticket. Here's the bug. Submit. Really quick. If you can get good at communicating through video, you'll be promoted. You'll be you'll be communicating better than everybody else. All right, last one. Understand what will bring you happiness. Because the bottom line is people aren't usually good at choosing what will make them happy. We think the wrong things. It's not about money, right? It's so temporary. If people win the lottery and then they measure their happiness level, and a year later nothing has changed. It's not fame. And I've been reading this book. It's a great book. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. It's a great book. There's a quote in there. He says, true happiness only happens when you find the problems you enjoy having and enjoy solving. We are problem solvers by nature. You take a look at, who, no matter what, it could be the most wealthy person, the most famous person, they still have problems that they have to deal with on a daily basis that bring them just as much frustration as your problems. So the best thing that you can do in your life is get yourself in a position where you can solve problems that are meaningful to you. And do it in a way that builds yourself as a craftsman, because it's not just about the code. Technology alone isn't enough, right? You, in order to be a craftsman and love solving these code problems, need to get good at communicating and all these other skills. And I'll give you 11 ways you can solve problems more effectively. Actually, I already did. But you can set expectation, even when you're not asked to. You can be mindful of your inner problem solver and make sure when people are in brainstorming mode that you yes and. You can understand that software development is a craft and you are craftsmen. And that no matter what problem you're given, it's your job to find the beauty in it. Number 4 is learning how to delegate and improve the system. Don't just accept the status quo. Figure out how to improve the system of how the business works. Don't assume that tasks put in front of you have to be done by you. Continue to learn inside and outside of your company. Stay out of your comfort zone, because it's the hard, scary tasks that are going to bring you the most learning and might be the most reward. Number 7 is take the time to build relationships and make friends, because nobody values that as much as they should. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Give yourself 30 minutes. Learn to eliminate distractions and get in the zone. Turn off all those things that are going to kick you out of the zone. And realize the most complex solution is really the best solution. Keep it simple, the most simple solution. Communicate better than everybody else. Those are 11 ways. So each of these can help you do better work. Each of these can help the people around you do better work. And each of these can help you be more successful at solving problems, hopefully have more fun doing it, and hopefully lead to more happiness. And that's my talk. We